Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. You're probably here if you've already seen the walkthrough for the tunnel album. So this is my 49er Market Wanderlust Explorer album using the Wanderlust Explorer kit, which I got from Craftywafty here in the UK. So yeah, if you wanted some of these papers, head to the description below. I've already done a product walkthrough for these, so you can see what's available as well. Yeah, so I've already done the walkthrough for this. So this is just the basics I'm going to be showing today, and you can take it to the next level and do what you want to it. But what you will also need to get is the cutting guide, the Wanderlust Tunnel Album cutting guide. And you can get this by joining my Facebook group called Paper Crafting with Paul. Link to that is in the description below. So you can go to the Facebook group, answer a couple of questions if you're new, and then go to the files section, look for Wanderlust Tunnel Album Cutting Guide, and you can download the PDF then, so you've got all the measurements ready to go. So it looks far more complicated than it is. Trust me, I've done workshops on these tunnel albums, and I've had groups of people doing them, and all of them turned out fantastic. So it may look complicated, but the techniques are nice and easy. As soon as you get to grips with the aperture cutting, you'll be away. So without further ado, let's get crafting. So here we are ready to go with the large tunnel album, and I'm going to start off by doing the cover. So I've got my cutting guide, which I've downloaded from Paper Crafting with Paul, the Facebook group. Again, I'll link in the description below for you to get that. And we're going to start off with the grey board pieces. Now, A4 grey board is 8 1/4 wide. So the measurements are really easy. So you don't need to cut the 8 1/4. You just need to cut it at 10 1/4. And you need 2 pieces of that. And then the spine is a 2" by 8 1/4. So that's all I'm doing is cutting down the 2" pieces. So the cover is nice and easy. And then to assemble it, I like using this tape. I get mine from Cool Cats Crafts. Again, I'll link in the description below. It's a construction tape, so it's nice, it's papery but nice and strong and easy to use, and makes your album cover easily and quickly and affordable. So I'm going to use the construction tape with a nice sharp scissors and my bone tool just to smooth it out. But if you want to create that extra aperture in the cover to make your tunnel album even deeper with an extra layer, you can cut out an aperture from here. So if you're going to do that, you can use your trimmer, or you can use a ruler and a pencil. And you'll also need your craft knife as well for cutting it out. So let's start by doing the aperture. So on my cutting guide, it says, cut an aperture in 1 with a 1 1/2 inch width. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm on my trimmer, I've got my 1 1/2 here, so I'm going to be using that side. This is my blade for cutting my cardstock and paper, so I don't want to use that on my grey board. So what I've got here is an old one which has gone a bit blunt. It's hard to see because it's a black on black, but I have got a little G written on it, G for grey board. So I'm going to use that for helping me do my aperture. So it's 1 1/2 inches. So I'm going to line up my grey board at 1 1/2 inches. And I'm going to line up that arrow with 1 1/2 inches down my ruler and engage it. So it's 10 1/4, so 9 1/4, 8 3/4 would be 1 1/2 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to stop at 8 3/4. So it's not going through my grey board, but it's just doing a little indentation. And again, 1 1/4 down to 8 3/4. Now we're going to do the short side. So 1 1/2 inches. Start again at 1 1/2, and I want to stop at 1 1/2 inches away. So it's 6 3/4. But I also have this score line here, which I can line it up to. So we're just joining those two lines together. Here we go. And again, 1 1/2 and 1 1/2. Okay. Now, if you're really good at your measuring, what you can do is do the same on the other side. And if your measurements are accurate enough, the blade will come from one side of the grey border and from the other and join in the middle. Now, I'm not always as successful with this method, so I usually just take my knife and just take my time and cut through. But let's give it a go, just in case I'm lucky today. So we're just going around the 1 1/2 all the way with exactly the same measurements as we did before. The 8 3/4 to 1 1/2 and the 6 3/4 to 1 1/2. Okay. So we have cut from both sides. I've just got a piece of scrap grey board here. You can use your cutting mat if you want. But just something that's going to protect your work surface. We're just going to take our knife, and because we have that channel, the blade sort of just runs down it. So I think I've actually met the other side pretty well here. I can feel it going through nice and easy, just in that channel. I mean, I have got my metal ruler, should I wish to, but I've been quite lucky today with how deep the cuts have gone. And the last one. So let's have a look. Yeah, I'm happy today. We actually have an aperture in our board. So there we go. So now we've got our cover all ready to go. We've got our back, our spine, and our front. So I'm going to start off with the back. So this is what you would do to both pieces if you didn't have the aperture. You take your tape, but of course you can use the cardstock cover method if that's the way you prefer. This is just my preference. I have my tape with a sticky side up, and I place it down the middle. So you can see it's halfway down. And then I just gently ease more tape out, and I flip it over to the short side. And then do some more and flip it over. On the long side, and then I trim it off. I do not need to do that last edge, only those 3, because that last edge is going to be attached to the spine. So all I'm doing now, I'm taking my scissors, I'm just cutting a little notch, a little V towards the corner of the grey board. And I do that on all 4, which is why I haven't put it down, because you don't want to squash your tape. There we go. And the last one. There we go. So I've cut the corners on all 4. I'm now going to place it down. I'm going to take my hand and rub it across the edge, just to adhere it down. And as I'm doing that, I'm just going to tilt my hand to the left and to the right. And you can see the tape is starting to wrap itself around the grey board, and I can see the grey board start to show. I'm going to pinch my thumb and finger together, start in the middle because it's quite a long album, and gently just press on the edge. So I haven't pressed the whole tape down, just the edge, and I've got a really nice clean edge. And now I'm just going to work further down the tape towards the middle of the grey board, and it's all stuck up. And I'm doing that on all three sides. Rub it, pinch it from the middle out because it's so long, and then press it down. Now if you do get a wrinkle or a tear, it doesn't matter. It's a very forgiving way of doing it. So I've got 3 now, and today's come together really well. I've got no wrinkles, but if I have, I can just iron them out with my bone folder. There we go. And you can see now it's all wrapped. So I'm going to do the same now on the aperture one. Now with the aperture one, it's a little trickier because it's a thinner frame, which means it is going to bend a little bit more. You've lost some of the sturdiness by taking out that middle. So it's a bit wobbly, but it's still the same method. Just take your time. And then 3 sides are done. Trim off the tape. It's a bit long, I think. You don't want it going over the edge. A little bit shorter is fine, but longer is not. And now I'm going to cut those 4 corners again. And last one. Now we're going to do exactly the same as we did before, just be more aware that you've lost some of the integrity as you press down. Pinch and press, so rub it on, pinch it on the edge, and then press it down. And the last one, rub it, pinch it, and rub it down. And just give it a little iron out. There's a bit of a wrinkle there. I'm not worried. It's ironed out. And then you just want to tape the top of this spine and wrap it over and wrap the other end. And then we've got this aperture, which we don't want to leave as grey. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut little pieces of the tape. And I'm just going to stick them on my work surface here, ready to go. So I need quite a few. Keep going. Right. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these just to wrap these corners. So I'm taking it up and I'm wrapping it around the corner there and there. As close to that corner as I can get. I'm going to do that on all 4 edges. Take it into the corner. I found this is definitely the easiest way of covering an aperture if you've got an aperture in your album cover. Just got a bit of extra greeble there. That's it. And So we've covered the 4 corners. We're now just going to put the little piece of diagonal across just to hide the grey board there. So I need a few more pieces. And of course we've got the back as well. Two, 3, and 4. So I'm just going to press them down. And the job of those 4 pieces is just to camouflage the grey board. No other job. So we've just got these central pieces to do now. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to cut a piece which bridges between those 2. Place it half on there. Fold it, keeping it nice and taut, and over. Iron out the wrinkles and press it down. So bridge the gap. Fold it over and press it down. 2 more pieces. 1 to go here. Should I do both at the same time? I'm sure I can. Because they're not going to meet at all, are they? There we go. And then so this one, I'm going to pull up this way and fold it over. And this one over this way. So you can see they're not even, they're not the same size, but it's not going to matter because you're only going to see a little tiny portion when you've decorated it up. And there we go. That's the aperture covered. The only thing we need to do now is put the whole cover together. So to do that, I'm going to take a piece, double the length of my cover, and just add a little bit extra on. And then you're not going to see the whole tape because it's so long, but it's going all the way down. And I'm going to place this just halfway across, or just under halfway, because the spine then is going to be placed on top, corner to corner, because we need a little gap in between the cover to make the hinge work. So I'm going to hold the corners together and flip it over. Now when I open it up, you can see we'll now have a space down middle, which is twice the thickness of your grey board. So it doesn't matter what grey board you've used, it is now twice the thickness. And then I'm just wrapping around. And the same thing for the other one. Take a piece, twice as long, and an extra little bit, just so we've got a bit of overlap. I'll try and do it this way, you might be able to see a bit better. I'm going to place the uncovered edge of the spine onto the tape, the uncovered end of the back, and line up the 2 corners, holding everything together, flip and over, and just make sure your tape doesn't close on itself. And then that's all I need to do is just pull it up and press it down. There we go. And then, as you fold it, don't take the sharp end and poke it down because you will tear it. But you can just gently just work it There we go. And there. And that now has not only covered and given you a nice finish, it's also created your hinges. Now, there may be too much grey board showing here for what your spine when you put it in. So you may want to add a bit more tape. Now to do that, this is the inside of my album cover. I'm just going to place some tape and give it an extra couple of inches top and bottom and fold it over onto what is in effect the front part. There we go. And again, here. So don't be stingy with the tape here. You want plenty to overlap. Otherwise, what's going to happen when you put your spine on here and all the pages, it's going to try and take this tape off. So by taking it over, you're sort of anchoring it to your grey board. So this looks like it should be the inside, but it's the outside. But as soon as you put your piece of paper on there, you won't see it. So that is the cover made for our tunnel album. So I'm going to put my tape and things away, and I'm going to grab my cardstock, my trimmer, my scoreboard, and my double-sided tape, ready to put my spine and pages together. Okay, so I've got my cardstock now ready to do the inside of the album. It's just 220 GSM black cardstock. And of course the cutting guide is going to be quite helpful here, having it next to me here. I'm just going to work my way through here. So I've got my trimmer. I'm going to do all my cutting first. So first of all, I need to cut the pages. So I need 8 of my pages. When I come to do, I'll do the scoring later. So the size here is height by width. So it's 8 1/4 tall, which is my A4, by 9 3/4. Now, when I do my pages, I like to cut them in pairs. That way I know they're exactly the same size. 9 3/4. There we go. And you want to be as precise as you can with these cutting, because we're going to be cutting apertures into them. It'll really help. So you do need to do 8 of them, but it's going to be quite dull for you to watch me making 4 pages. So I've already prepped 3 of them. So I got 2 of these. You will need 8 of those. Then we're going to do the spines. So there's one 2-inch spine and one 3-inch spine. So they're both 7 3/4 tall, obviously. So I'm going to cut a 5-inch, just because if I cut the 7 3/4, I lose some of my cardstock. So 5 inches, the 2 and 3 together. Then 7 3/4 tall. Now a little tip for you: go back just slightly on your spine. So just a tiny little fraction less than 7 3/4. That means the height of your spine is just slightly less than your pages. So when you come to put your pages on, they're not butting against exactly the same size. It's just a little bit smaller. And then cut them at, so it's 2 inches this side, 3 inches that side. So I know it's right. So those are my spine pieces. Then for the back, you can do whatever you want, but I've got some large and small pockets. So these are 11 1/4. So I'm going to cut the longest length first. 11 3/4. And the large one is 5 1/2. The small one is then 2 3/4, which is what you've got left. So I've made the most out of my cardstock. The 2 pockets it's just the end I've cut off. Then you can make some photo mats as well. I've suggested 7 1/2 by 8 3/4, but it's totally up to you with them. So I'll leave them for now. So we don't need our trimmer anymore. We just need our scoreboard. So I got some letters and symbols here. So scoring, 8 1/4 inches OT. So if you remember, we cut our cardstock to 8 1/4 by 9 3/4. So 8 1/4 OT means put the 8 1/4 side on top of your scoreboard. OT on top. So 8 1/4 on top at 7 3/4. So you're going to score with 8 1/4 on top at 7 3/4. And you score down. And you can do that for all 8 pieces. So you can see now why I've prepped 3 of my pages ready. See me do this 8 times. I don't think you'd enjoy. So that's my pages done. Now my spine. So my 2-inch. Here's my 2-inch spine. It says with the 2-inch on top, score at 1/2 and 3/4. So I've done 1/2 and 3/4. So you're creating a 1/2-inch flap to attach your page and a little flexible gusset there. Then there's the letter R. R means to rotate it. So we're going to rotate 1/2, 3/4, rotate, 1/2 and 3/4. That's going to leave me a little 1/4 inch gap in the middle. That's our spine gaps there. So 3 inches is the same. So it says 1/2 and 3/4, 1/2 and 3/4, rotate, 1/2 and 3/4. So this one is actually going to stack on top. It's a stack the deck hinge, and it's going to stack on top there. Now, what's nice about this one is the width of this is the same as the width between the 2 1/2-inch lines. So I'll be able to line it up exactly in the middle. So those are the pages. And then we've got our pockets. So the 11 1/4 on top at 1/2, rotate 1/2, and with the 5 1/2 on top at 1/2 inch. So you can see the directions are nice and easy to understand once you get into the rhythm of it. So 11 1/4 on top at 1/2. I'm doing the small pocket now, the 2 3/4 one. 11 1/4 on top, 1/2, rotate 1/2. With the 2 3/4 on top, score it at 1/2. Just double score that, right. And that's all the scoring done. So now it's time to tape and do a little bit of trimming as well. Right, so with the pages, I'm going to take some strong double-sided tape. Okay, your red liner tape is great. This is the Cool Cats Sticky Paws. So it's a bit like score tape in strength, but easier to get in the UK. But any strong double-sided tape will do. And I'm just placing it down that 1/2 inch edge. So you will do that to all 8. And then, just to help, this little 1/2 inch score line, I'm just going to miter a tiny little triangle off it. And again, do that for all 8 pieces. There we go. And then set them aside. Now we're going to do the spines. So spines have got a lot more score lines, but it's still nice and simple. Tape up the 2 1/2 inches on either side. And just as we did with the pages, each of these 1/2 inches, I'm going to trim off a little miter. That's going to help get the pages on at a later stage. So that is the front. Then we're going to flip them over, and on the back I'm going to place tape down the center channel. So on this 2-inch one, just one strip will cover the middle there. On this 3-inch one, I'm going to put one up against that score line. So going in between the 2 middle score lines, and I got room for another little strip down the middle. Okay, so that's our 2 spines taped up on the 2 outers on the front, and down the middle as much tape as you can down between the 2 central score lines. And with our pockets, we've got 3 1/2 inch. So we're going to put the tape between all those 1/2 inch score lines, and the same with the small one. And with these, we need to take away these bottom corners. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut towards where the 2 1/2 inches cross, and then come closer. So you can see where I've come to the cross. Now if I go straight across, chances are when I fold these back, they're going to touch and create 3 layers of cardstock, which I don't want. So I'm just going to tilt my scissors and just make it a bit of a sharper cut. So it's not straight across, it's cut, angled, and cut again. And the same with this one. One, 2. Okay. So set them aside. So that's all our scoring done, all our taping done. Now it's time to fold and assemble. So our pages, we got this long 1/2 inch edge. When you're folding a long edge like this, start in the middle and work out. That'll help keep it a bit straighter. And then take your bone folder, and you're going to score, and you're going to press down quite hard, because you want this flap, this 1/2 inch flap, to be as flat to your cardstock as you can. So getting right into that edge and really pressing down. This will give you a nice finish at the end. If you don't, and you just give it a very light burnish, you can see the difference here. So this one is pushing out. You can see it like that. So when you put your paper or your cardstock the other side on, what it's going to do is try and push it out and create an opening of a mouth. But if you get as flat as you can, your page will lie flat as well, and that is what you want. And it does take a while. You've got to burnish and burnish and burnish it. So from the middle out, pressing it from both sides. So this is why I've already done 3 already, so I can get them and take my time to get them as flat as I can, using the sharp edges of my Teflon tool, using the corners, getting it really flat. which is important for the pages. And then you should have two like this. If I turn it this way, it's just easier for me to get my corners. Make sure one of them has the tape at the top, one has the tape at the bottom. Take off a little bit of the backing and just fold it back on itself upwards. And the same on this side. Fold it upwards. And now flip it over and line up your two corners. Now, because none of this is exposed and those two bits are acting like stilts type things, I can move this around until I get it into position that I'm happy. So I'm looking at the top two corners, but I'm also looking down the bottom here as well, because I want all four corners lined up. So they're lined up. That's lined up. That's lined up. So now I'm happy to press down. So I press down the two corners, and now I can remove this and burnish it down, getting it nice and flat. So now my two pages are attached. I'm now going to do exactly the same. Remove part of the tape from each corner, and using my hand, I'm going to iron it across, get all the air out, getting it as flat as I can. Pressing down the corners when I'm happy and pulling out. And that should give you, you can see it's lying flat. Look at that. I mean, it's not going to be perfectly flat in the middle, but that is one way which I'm happy with. So now I've done all four. So pretend you saw me do the same 4 times. Spine. So the spine, we've got the two central channels. The two center score lines, we're going to fold up. We don't need to do that really strong burnish this time because it's going to be a 90-degree one, not 180 lie flat. So just a little burnish will do. And then these two 1/2 inch ones, if I flip it upside down and fold them back, they'll create a couple of little wings for me. I'll burnish them down. So what I've got is a U shape in the middle and 2 wings to attach my pages. And the idea is that extra score line will create a flexible hinge for me. So my pages will flip both ways. So I've trained my cardstock now to go in both directions. And now I'm going to do exactly the same with the 3-inch one. I'm going to lift the 2 middle ones and just give them a little burnish. Just flip it over and fold those 1/2 inch ones towards the middle, back on itself. So I've created that U shape with the wings, but I want that to be going both ways. So I'm going to fold them in again. And there we go. Now, bearing in mind, we're going to be putting our pages and our papers and our photo mats onto this spine. We want this to be as strong as possible. So this tape is really good, but just to give it some extra strength, I'm going to add some glue as well. So the last thing we want is for the spine to come loose from our album. So just a bit of glue down the spine as well. Just bring it in. There we go. And as I said, when I open this up, it will fit between those 2 1/2 inch score lines. There we go. And just finish it down. And now what I've got, when I lift it up, is I've got 4 hinges for my pages to slot onto. And this then, of course, will go into our album. So I'm going to do that now. And that means it'll have plenty of time while I'm doing my pages and pockets and things it'll have plenty of time to dry. There we go. So glue, bring back my chipboard cover, and I'm just going by eye and placing it, oh, it's a bit too high. On my cover. Here we go. And now I'm going to press it down. If you've got some excess glue, just rub it off. So now we have those 4 hinges ready for my pages, and set it aside to dry. And with these pockets, again, we want them to be as flat as we can. So lots of burnishing, otherwise you get pockets which bow in your album, which doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. And the same with the larger one. Gonna get it as flat as we can. So these are gonna go on our back pocket, the back of our cover, to offer lots more photo spaces. So let's bring in the cover, and you can see it'll now fit widthwise on there. I'm going to take off my tape from the bottom, and I'm going to add some glue. Because we're going onto the grey board and tape, the black tape, it just gives me a little bit more strength. And I'm lining up on the bottom right corner and sticking it down. Okay. Now, when you go to put your photo mats and things in, you might find it catches on that 1/2 inch strip, meaning you lose 1/2 inch depth in your pocket. So what you can do is take any tape you've got, washi tape, but because I've still got this black tape out, I'm going to use my black tape. I'm going to tape over that flap. And what that's going to do is create a little ramp. So now, when I put my cardstock in, it'll run over that tape. And when I come to fold this, I'm going to use some pattern continuation. I'm going to save my cardstock. You're likely to see the grey board in the pocket, which I don't like as much. So take your pen, pencil, and draw a line. That's where the pocket finishes. Take some black cardstock, or if you've got the black tape, just run a strip or two like so, and that will just sort of camouflage. Cut it a bit short. I just use your Sharpie. If you've got any grey board showing, Sharpie. Take off the 2 sides, and now what that's done is camouflaged my grey board for me. I'm going to add some glue and fold up. So you can see now, if anybody looks in that pocket, what they'll see is black as opposed to the grey board. And with the smaller pocket, that's going to go on top of the larger one again, lining it up on the bottom right and dropping it on. Placing some tape on that little 1/2 inch. And folding it up. And normally now, this is where you would start to attach your pages onto that hinge. So you can see, making those angles and taking off that little fraction has made fitting it on nice and easy. But this being our tunnel album, we've got some work to do to our pages. So I'm going to have a little clear up, set aside things, and grab that cutting guide and trimmer. Okay, so trimmer, 4 pages, and the all-important cutting guide. So once you have assembled your pages and made them as flat as possible, ... this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our pages and we're going to create apertures which are going to get smaller and smaller. Now I've tried to keep the measurements as easy as I can, sticking to 1/4 inches rather than 1/8 and stuff like that. So it shouldn't be too complicated. As soon as you get the basics, it'll all make sense. Okay, so page 1. This is going to have a 1.5 inch border. Then we have, shall I bring it closer so you can actually see what I'm talking about? Right, page 1, it's going to have a 1.5 inch border. You can see there's 2 cutting guides, one for the short edge, one for the long edge. It tells us where we start our cut, where we're looking at the side of our ruler here, and where to stop. So when I'm reading it out, this is what I'll be following. Okay, now the only problem is my cardstock's black, my lines are black, so it's sometimes hard for you to see. But what I'll try and do is I'll use this white paper for you to have a look at. Okay, so page 1, 1.5 inch border. That means I've got 1.5 inch both sides. So when I can, I like to use the right hand side. So I'm going to line up my, we're going to do short edge first. Short edge, 1.5 inches. So it's a 1.5 inch border. So I'm lining up the edge of my card with the 1.5 inch. Then it says aperture cutting on the short edge. Start at 1.5 and stop at 6 1/4. So you can see 6 1/4 down here. You probably can't see it. So let's have a look. So I've got my cardstock trimmer back in. I forgot to change it back when I was cutting the bases. So I had a bit of a feathery edge, but I realized why now. 1.5. So this little arrow's pointing to 1.5. So I can press it. There we are, I haven't clicked in place. So 1.5 inches. And I'm going to cut. And I'm going to keep going until this little arrow is pointing to 6 1/4. So I'm pressing down, cutting, stopping at 6 1/4. 1.5 to 6 1/4. And we want to do that on both edges. So line up again on 1.5, start at 1.5, go to 6 1/4. So this is going to make the biggest aperture. And then we're going to do the long edge. So again, it's a 1.5 inches. So I'm lining up the edge of my page with 1.5. And this time it says to stop at 8 1/4. Start at 1.5, stop at 8 1/4. So here's my 1.5 and my 8 1/4. Now there's a second way of checking it. That arrow should point to the cut we made the first time here. Okay, so 1.5 to 8 1/4. I'll turn it around, and again 1.5 down to 8 1/4. And we now have an aperture. Now, if you've got a bit of feathering or something, don't panic. Just grab your craft knife and just tidy up those corners. And you should have a nice, even aperture. And it's just a case of repeating that for each of the pages and following that cutting guide. So page 2 is a 2-inch border. So this time, every time I'm going to line up the edge with 2, and I'm starting at 2 inches. And this time, oh, I'm doing the long edge, apparently, 7 3/4. Right. The short edge is 2 inches, start at 2 inches, and stop at 5 3/4. Those of you who love maths like me will realise that all I've done is everything's gone down 1/2 inch each time. So stop at 7 3/4 and 2 inches again, 5 3/4 and 2. So now we have an aperture now, which is 1/2 inch less all the way around. Page 3. So page 3 is a 2.5. So this time I'm going to have to jump to this side, to the left-hand side. 2.5. So start at 2.5 and stop at 5 1/4. So 5 1/4 is there, and 2.5 is there. And turn it around, 2.5 and 5 1/4. Then the long edge, start at 2.5, 7 1/4. So 2.5, 7 1/4. Again, 2.5. And 7 1/4. So we've now got page 3 done, and you can see yet again it's nice and even. And the final page, page 4, is a big 3-inch border, so it's going to be a very small aperture. So it's a 3-inch border. I start at 3 inches. So this is the long edge, 6 3/4. So just keep referring back to that cutting guide. 3 inches and 3 inches, 6 3/4 is there. Stop at 3. And the short edge is 3 inches, stop at 4 3/4. Yep, all worked out. Three inches, 4 3/4, and 3. And we now have that last page. Now, if you found that you might have cut a bit too far, or you've cut and that you've got this little cross, what you can do is just take your tape, and as we did with the cover, just take a piece diagonally across, and it will hide any overcuts you might have done. So once you've done that process and you've just followed this exactly as it says, 1.5, start at 1.5, where to stop, you'll be fine. You'll have a nice even apertures. And once you've done that technique, the papers then on top are going to be exactly the same method, the same ideology. So if you can do that, the decorating is going to be a piece of cake. So that's what we're going to do next, is we're going to put these aside. We will still need the cutting guide and our trimmer. So this time it'll be trimmer and our papers. So here I'm ready now to add some papers to the project. So I'm using the Wanderlust Explorer collection by 49 Market, and I'm using the 12x12 collection and the 12x12 solid collection pack for this one, but I will have plenty of 12 by 12 left at the end. But having both just gives me more flexibility to match both sides of the paper. So I got these from Craftywafty, so I'll link the shop in the description below for you. So I'm going to start off. I've chosen this wooden one for the cover. Now, it's up to you now if you want to use your papers to cover, sorry, not the papers, an acetate to cover the front as well. So I like to add a little piece of acetate. If you are, you're just going to cut this at 8 by 10, which is just 1/4 inch less than your cover piece. If you haven't done the aperture on yours, then that's all you'll need to do is do a piece 10 by 8 as well of your paper. So our aperture piece was 1.5 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is go down 1/4 inch. So it was 1.5. So I'm going to cut strips at 1.25 inches wide. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've got 4 strips there for my 12 by 12 papers, and I need to cut 2 of them at 10 inches. So again, that's 1/4 inch less than what the width of my cover is. So I've just gone down 1/4 inch. So it was 10.25. So this piece is 10 inches. The other 2 I'm not going to trim yet. I will do it as slightly different with those. So the first thing I'm going to do is just ink the edges of these using my distress ink. So I've gone for the black soot because I've got black card and black tape, but a nice brown would work with this collection too. So I'm just going around the edge just to get rid of that white core from the paper. And so all I'm going to do now is stick these on the cover. So I'm going to use my glue, bring in my cover, my glue is clogged. I think it's to do with the warm weather we've got. Let me just... there we go. So we're just going to glue this strip along the top. Leaving an even edge top and bottom, and the same for the second piece. Trying to make everything nice and even, gaps, sides and top and bottom of each piece. And now I'm going to use those other 2 strips we've got. And what I'm going to do is line up the corners here and the straight line here. And then just slide it over just a little bit so I can see. Now, I'm just going to mark where this paper would come across diagonally and it would meet there. And here it would go to there, to there. And if I cut with my scissors from that black line to that corner, and the same with this black dot and this black dot, we'll have a piece which is going to fit there perfectly. So we've used our paper to do our lining up. And I'm just going to ink the edge The advantage of doing this way is it'll match perfectly because you've matched it to where you've put your papers. If I'd done it and measured it, it may not have matched up perfectly, but this way it does. Now I'm just going to do these diagonals a little bit darker than everything else, and it'll give us like a mitered effect, you can see there, which I think looks quite effective. And again, I'm just going to glue this one on. And then just place it, lining up those corners. And then just repeat on the other side. So I'm lining up the corners down here this time. So I can't see where this paper is, so I'm just going to slide it over slightly just so I can see. So this is where it would meet here, and there, and there. Cut from those black lines to the corners. And once again, just ink up the edges and go nice and dark on the diagonals. And just catch the edge here, but go nice and dark on the diagonal. And it sort of makes that more of a highlight then, rather than just where the cardstock's meeting. It's sort of making it look more intentional, should I say. And the same on this side, just line it up. And there you have a lovely frame. And then we're going to do the same technique on the inside, but it's slightly different because I'm going to use my acetate. If you're not going to use acetate, you can go ahead just as you are and just do it. But I think the acetate does add a little bit to it. Now I'll need 5 inches, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a half. Let me check if I'm going to go with, so the paper I need at 7.5. No, I won't get it out of, I was seeing if I could get it out of the pages for paper for page 1, but I can't. I'm half an inch short, so I'm going to keep going with this one. 1.25 inches. And hopefully, yes, that last bit is just enough for my spine as well. So if I cut it at just under 2, that'll go on my spine now. So what was the spine? The spine was 8.25, so I cut this at 8 ready. So this is 8 by just under 2 inches. So here we go. So we're continuing that wood effect on the spine. Okay. So the outside is done, just the inside, which is what we've got here, the acetate. Now the acetate I said was 10 by 8. So I'm going to do these 12-inch strips. I need to tape it a minimum of 10 inches. So we'd go to there and here. And I'm going to ink the long side, one short side, and the other long one at least 10 inches. I'm going to take it off. And I'm going to line this. Let me bring in my cutting sheet, it might help me a little bit. There we are, it's a bit clearer. Just going to line the corner of my acetate and across. And now I can trim it off and just take my ink and edge there now. And I'm going to do the same with another strip. Again, a minimum of 10 inches of tape. Ink up one short edge and the two long edges. And line up the other side. And just ink off, just finish it off that nice and neatly. And now we're going to continue using double-sided tape to do the two edges as well. So I'm going to tape the edges here. And this will ensure we've got tape then to the edge when we have those corners as well. So what I'm going to do is put them a bit down the middle too. There we go. And we're going to do exactly the same as before. Just line up in the corner, move it over slightly. Mark where it intersects here, here, and here. And what we'll have is on the back, edge to edge. And now I can ink the two edges. And just as we did before, those diagonal pieces, just make them a little bit darker, a bit more prominent. Take off the double-sided. And align it there. And the last one now. Let's do the 3 strips. Flip it over. Mark where the line will go. And cut. So again, those diagonals nice and dark. Then remove that tape again. So you can see that edge to edge by taping it first. And we're going to place that to the edge. And that's it. That's now covered our acetate sheet. But again, it's not going to stick to my cover using glue. So I'm still going to be using double-sided tape. Anywhere where I'm doing the acetate needs to be taped rather than glued. So I'm taping around the edge to seal the edge and the inside of the aperture, so it's not lifting in the middle. So we won't get any lifting by here, or pushing down, sorry. It's lifting when it's that way. So let's keep that white paper. And now, the moment of truth. This should match evenly to the cover. So nice black border. Everything has gone nicely today. I do love this paper. There's something about doing this cover with a wood effect, which is just lovely. It does make it look like it's a frame, doesn't it? So there we go. That's the cover done. And the spine. Then the back, I'll either just put a piece of black cardstock, which is 10 by 8, or if I've got a piece left over that I like, which I don't mind using on the back, I'll do that. But that can wait until the end. So that is the cover completed for now. We're now going to start doing our pages. Okay, so let's just bring in those pages we made. And I'm going to bring in page 1's paper. Now this is what the paper I was testing earlier to see if I could get the spine stuff out, but I couldn't. To get the aperture matching, but I couldn't. So our pages are where are we? Here we are. 7 3/4 by 9 3/4. So to go down 1/4 inch, I'm going to be cutting all my decorative papers at 7.5 by 9.5. So I've already cut the 7.5 when I was doing some experimenting earlier. So you've got this ready to do your photo mats later on. And then we're going to cut this at 9.5. It's all in the cutting guide, so make sure you go to Paper Crafting with Paul and download that the cutting guide, because it's all here. Cut all decorative papers to 7.5 by 9.5. So I'm going to ink the edge. So the cutting guide is going to be quite similar to what we did with the pages. It's got our thickness of border here. It tells us what to cut on the short edge and what to cut on the long edge. So bear in mind you've already done the pages. This is now the same. So page 1, it's got a 1 1/4 inch border. So I'm going to line this up at 1 1/4. Which means my cutting is also going to start at 1 1/4. And it's going to stop 1 1/4 inches from the bottom. So that's 6 1/4. So the only thing you need to make sure here is you're following these cutting dimensions, not the pages ones. So I fold it over, it might help. So 1 1/4 inch border, start at 1 1/4 and end at 6 1/4. Then the long edge, again 1 1/4 and 1 1/4. And this time we're stopping at 8 1/4. And I can see that that's where that cutting line was from the short edge, so I'm happy joining up those two, and that will give you a rectangle which hopefully will fit, look at that, onto page 1. So I'm just going to ink the inside. And then what you're going to do then is have a think about the paper you're going to use on page 2. Because you want the back of this page to sort of match in or tie in with that. So is there any wording here? Yes, there's numbers there. It's that way round. Okay. It's just very subtle on these papers, but some of them do have a direction which you don't notice at first. So we're going to glue this on. There we go. So that's the front of page 1 done. So as I said, you need to think about what you're going to use on page 2. So I was going to go with this one for page 2, which means the back of this one needs to sort of tie in with this. And the cutting is obviously going to be the same as the previous one. So I thought that would tie in quite nicely. So, well, I've already inked them. I had written as well, page 1. Because originally I was going to use this side because it sort of matched in there. And then I wrote on the wrong side. But it's still matched because the colours coordinate. So this is now the back of page 1. Exactly the same cutting as we did for the front. So that is page 1 done. We're now going to do page 2. So again, cut the paper to 7.5 by 9.5. 7.5, 9.5. Ink the edge before cutting the aperture. I do it because it's just a bit stronger. Okay, and this time it says we're going to have a 1 3/4 inch border. So 1 3/4 and 1 3/4. And on the short edge, we're going to stop at 5 3/4. So 1 3/4, 5 3/4 to 1 3/4. And on the long edge, stop at 7 3/4. So 1 3/4. Starting at 1 3/4 and stopping at 7 3/4. So we have that. Just ink the inside. And this now will fit our page 2. Let's bring in page 2. There we go. And the back then is exactly the same cutting, but just have a think about how it's going to match page 3. Yeah, so the first thing I did was lay out my two collections side by side and sort of pair up the papers to what would match. So we've got the back of page 2 done, and you will see how it's starting to build up already. So now we're going to go to page 3. So page 3 is this one. So I thought, oh, this paper and that paper sort of matched up and looked like it would go across. So cut at 7.5. So you've got nice big chunks left, which are 4.5 inches for making cards and things. This time, do I want more of the red or more of the blue? The blue is going to tie in a bit better, isn't it? Because the other side was blue. 9.5 inches. We've got some of the red coming in there anyway. And again, let's ink the edge. And now cut out the apertures. Oh, so now we're going to 2.25. So I can't use the left hand side, I'm going to use the right hand side. So 2.25, which means I'm going to be starting at 2.25 every time. On the short edge, stop at 5.25. Turn it around, 2.25, start at 2.25 and end at 5.25. And on the long edge, 7.25. So 2.25 is where we're starting again. 7.25 is where we're ending. 2.25. So that's coming up from the middle. So you can see the apertures are getting smaller as we go on. Get into those corners. So this fits page 3. Just taking glue around the edge and then just wiggling it all over the middle. And flip it over. I've got this brown one to go here, which I've cut for page 3, exactly the same cutting as what we've just done. Just done ahead of time, just to save a bit of time. Okay, so that's page 3. And now page 4. I think this is one of my favourite papers, all these stamps. So again, 7.5, 9.5, ink up the edge, and this will be now our smallest little hole, the smallest aperture we're going to do, which means this page, you're going to see most of it still. So 2.75 this time. So 2.75, which means I'm starting at 2.75 and I'm going to end on 4.75 on the short edge. 2.75, 4.75. So 2.75, 4.75, and the long edge again 2 3/4 and 2 3/4, and end at 6 3/4. 2 3/4, start at 2 3/4, and end at 6 3/4. Have it? Yes, let's come out as well. It's all going good. My cutting guide is correct so far. So far, I think that's the final cut, isn't it? That's all we've got then to do is the back pockets, and that's not on the cutting guide. So this is page 4. And around the edge. And wiggle it through the middle. And then the back of this, I've chosen some maps because my last page is going to be a map. There we go. Completed the final page nicely. So let's have a look at what we've got then. So these are what the 4 pages will look like when they're in the album. So we've just got the last decorative page to do, which is this. And I'm going to try and keep the top of this map. So this time it's not 7.5, it's 8 inches this time, isn't it? Because it's an 8 1/4 inch cover. And it's 10 1/4 inches across, which means I'm coming down to 10 inches. So same as if you were doing a full cover. Now this time, we're going to try and get this pattern continuing because I love maps, and so we're going to keep it showing. And what you'll find at the end is when you choose this paper, that's what you're going to see in the center of your album, like so. So that's why these pockets have been designed so this one is taller than the aperture, this one is shorter than the bottom of the aperture, so that it all fits nicely. So let's have a look at the ruler. So this is 2 1/4 inch. I'm going to go down 1/4 inch, so it's 2 inches off the bottom. So that will now fit there. Then the gap between here and here is 2 3/4. Let me turn it around. And then the top does fit there. So I just need to ink the tops of the pieces I've cut. I've already done the outside, so I just need the top. So I'm not doing anything else to this because this is where you've got your space for extra photos and things. So it's all about the space. So there's the first piece. This one I was going to tuck inside the pocket. Tuck inside. So make sure you're lining up with the black cardstock. There we go. You can see how it's lining up. And it's really making the most of your paper because you're not covering the hidden pieces. And that black tape is just giving me a nice finish inside. Or if you haven't got the tape, you just use your black cardstock. You won't be able to see the grey board. So let's just glue this one down. So it looks like it's just one piece of paper with two black lines, but those black lines are in fact the pockets. And there we go, that's the cover done and the base pages complete. So now is the fun part of creating that tunnel effect, so to speak. So let's have a look at what we're going to do. So I've got some pieces from the laser cuts. So if you haven't seen the laser cuts, this is how they will come to you, but obviously a lot fuller than mine here, because I've been taking mine out already. And here it is. Here's the cover. So the laser cut elements, but you could also use some of the chipboard words and elements as well if you wanted to. But the laser cuts are very fine and proper cut. So these now are on the back, so you can fussy cut those out if you want to have even more. But everything else, I've pushed out some elements from here. It's full of passports and cameras and globes, lots of travel ones. And then on this one, it was a lot of the floral elements from here. So as I said, I've already pushed a lot out. So are we going to start on page 1 or 3? So I like these, and I thought these would make great borders for page 1 to start that floral feel. And I like the zigzags because it's sort of matched there. So maybe I could tuck that in there. And what you're going to do now is just sort of create your composition. I've got a nice straight line there, so that's going to go probably down there. So let's have a look at how that's going to look there. Yes, we've got plenty of elements sticking out from the frame there. So let's glue some. Now make sure those bits hanging off that you're not adding glue to those. And you want to be careful about not having fine bits sticking out completely over your aperture, because it's going to get caught when you're adding your photo mats, if you've got photo mats, that is. So what should we stick down first? What's in the back? This one. Let's stick this, and it's going to be like an L shape of glue because the aperture is only here. So backwards L. And here, and I think I can catch a little bit on the bottom of the zigzags as well. Yeah. There we go. And let's add some glue. Onto this. Okay, and I feel like when this is on here, we may need some more things up the top. So let's maybe have a look at if we've got anything. So this could be quite nice. Just to add a bit more coming down. See if that's made a bit. Yes, see, that's added quite a bit of difference there straight away. So for page 2 then, I was thinking of starting to bring in some of the transport elements. So we've got this lovely big train. Now, down this bottom left corner is pretty much going to be hidden behind there. You're only going to see a tiny little bit, but I thought it needed some interest down there. So let's add that. So if he was over here, the glue would come up to there and there. So let's have a look before I push him down. Does it look the right height? Up slightly, there we are. So we have that train now started, but there'll be a bit of a gap between it. I'm liking that. So we're going to add some more florals to the corners. Try not to put those little fiddly bits in a place where they're going to get caught, so I can glue them down if I put it that side. And oh, I've got some more. So that camera's quite nice. Will I see that? Yes, and that will look nice because I'm bringing in a bit more florals. I think that wasn't the original intention, but there we go. I've still got some more florals. They look like a nice corner element. Like that. So let's see what that looks like. So you can see how all the flowers are starting to come together now. So let's see what other transports we've got. If we've got something on the right, do we need something on the left? So we've got more flowers already pushed out as well. Yeah, I think we'll go for the aeroplane next, because all the airplane look nice. Let's have a look. Yeah, we'll go for the Beetle, the Volkswagen camper. So he's going to go on the left. I love the colour matching. And so you can see the oranges coming in now. And then this is just going to come in. Let's have a look. Yes. There's a lot of that. Those little fiddly bits are then glued down by having it on the back one. So let's have a look. Yes, that's worked. But again, we still need more foliage and leaves and things. Oh, I didn't want it on that. I wanted it on that leaf. Keep it going up. I think so. Yes, that could work. I don't think that's what I actually had in mind, but that's the thing with this. It sort of just evolves as you're making it. Can I lift that just a little bit? So, yes, you can see some there. Do I need something here? Is there something quite wide, maybe? Oh, this one. That looks like it's coming across. Being gentle. This is a very finicky one. So let me lift it up. And we'll get as much of this glue down as we can. There we go. And then that's all we've got now is this final one. So let's start with some foliage. Let's push out some more. This looks like a nice one to keep things going on this. Oop. Anything else we can maybe stick one of those passports or something sticking out just to tie things in. Here's the passports. So we could have a passport sticking out here. And then these can also be used then as places to add tuck spots and things. So we've got quite a large area here. So if you put a little L shape, a reverse L, and place that there, what you can do then, now on the back of that page with some journal cards, I think these are 3x4 if I remember correctly. What you can do with these is you can, that's the one's a bit big, but it's just to give you the idea that you can start tucking things in, some smaller items maybe, and it just gives you just spaces to put things in. So let's have a look at how it all comes together. There we go. That is the Wanderlust Explorer tunnel effect. I mean, I've still got large items. I could still put things on. You could just keep going and going and going with these. Actually, he might be nice if he goes there. I could do a couple of things on the cover as well. So let's keep him for there. Yes, let's do that. So I can have glue all over the top and all over the tail. Let's commit. And again, I don't really want to cover too much of that either, do I? It's maybe a nice globe. And what's nice about these, the back colour is sort of toned in. So let's glue this. But what we'll do, a little idea, it's popped in. I'm not pressing it down too hard. Let's have some flowers coming from behind it. And I want something coming across the bottom. That one looks like it could work nicely. Yep. So that's why I didn't glue him, push him down too soon. I still need something come in here, I think. Just, there's these tiny ones which can just be nice little fillers. And there's even just some leaves. They're tiny, but they do make a difference when you're doing something like that. So here we go, almost complete. Let's now put our pages in, and then we can see then if there's anything else we want to add. So going back to the pages, start at the back. We've already put tape onto our spine, but I'm going to add glue just so it doesn't catch straight away. And I need to add glue to the back as well so it doesn't fall out. And the reason I don't put tape both sides is it would stick too soon for me to be able to get it on. So I put my hand inside, slide it on. So those little V shapes we cut really do help with that. And stop just before that score line. So before you hit that 1/4 inch score line, oh sorry, the 1/2 inch score line in, leaving that 1/4 inch exposed is what I was trying to say. You stop. If you go over that, your flexy part won't flex. And you just have this stiff page. Let's bring in page 3. And now page 2, the tape is on the other side, but that doesn't matter. We still put some glue on there, and we put glue to seal it shut here. So page 2. And the last one. Let me do this backwards like this. Might be easier because it's so thin. There we go. So you can see it's caught on the tape straight away, which is why I don't put it on both sides. Get it in. Add a bit more glue here. It's sticking a bit too soon for me. If I turn it upside down, that might help. There we go. And there we go. That was easier. So other than the piece on the back, that is the basis of your large tunnel book complete. Like I said, I really love these papers. This Wanderlust Explorer ones are lovely. It's masculine, it's feminine, it's a bit of both, and so it can suit everyone. And then that's all you need to do then is you can do your photo mats to go inside. That's up to you, however you want to do it, or if you want to do them at all. If you want to keep it as a book, purely just to look at with the tunnels, that's up to you. You can also add strips of paper now to the bottom and make belly bands or extra little pockets on the bottom, should you wish. Down here would be a nice place. Down here, as I say, we've already got a tuck spot there. We can add another tuck spot down here maybe. But as I said, it's up to you now. So it looks quite empty now, but as soon as you start filling it with your mementos and your memories from the trips, oh, that's nice there. Oh, just a quick decision, I like that. You can start now just filling it up. You've got all those extra little pieces, make them into tuck spots, make them into elements, do whatever you wish. And as I said, this would work with so many different papers, but the depth you get is lovely. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you do like your 49er market papers here in the UK, head to Craftywafty. I'll link the shop below for you to find where I got my papers from. A lot of selection there. They had the ephemera, they had the 6x8s, they had the collection, they had the solids as well. And if you want the cutting guide, you need to join my Facebook group, Paper Crafting with Paul. And I said, I can't wait to see your versions. And if you do, share some photos in my Facebook group. Please comment and like as well. It does help the channel to grow as well. So if this is your first time visiting, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, thumbs up, comments mean a lot. So thank you for watching and really looking forward to seeing your versions.